Also in Nabalm's tomb, we find musicians and dancers. And this is a really unique piece. What you're seeing overall is a series of noblewomen participating in music and dance, as well as two female performers. The noblewomen are dressed, they have jewels, the dancers, of course, undressed. And what we're seeing is a ceremonial feast for honoring the dead. And this is part of a larger scene, which would look something like this. So we have that larger banquet, and we're looking at the entertainment. You'll notice that the servants tend to be nude, or more or less nude. The female servants tend to be topless. Very, very common in Egypt. Clothing, of course, denotes status, much as it does today. And we see new painting conventions being mixed with old. So from the old side, things that we're used to, we see, for example, these, composite figures. So we see the chest facing us, the head looking forward, the feet looking forward, and it's happened again. But when we move down to the bottom, you'll notice that two of the musicians are actually facing us. We're seeing them in this very frontal pose, one leg kicked up. This is a very naturalistic form that we're seeing. So we see the basics of these figures along the top, and we're seeing these changes taking place in terms of composition. We also see them overlapping, something that we don't typically see in a lot of Egyptian art, giving a sense of depth. So this becomes really interesting. The piece is much more informal, much more dynamic. We get the sense of movement amongst the musicians as well as the dancers. And we get a sense of a luxurious life of nobility. How do we know it's luxurious? Well, first of all, at a funeral, they have dancers and musicians as well as a banquet. Last funeral I went to had ham sandwiches. So there's definitely something going on here. This accountant has done quite well. And what you're seeing over here on the right is actually an offering. This would be left in the tomb. It incorporates grain and wine, which means Nabalm had enough resources available that they can just bury him with stuff. They don't need it. Whereas if you were working class or poor, you're not going to be burying your relative with this much grain and wine. You're going to want to use most of it for your own survival. He has a surplus. It shows wealth. The whole thing giving a sense of prosperity and status, which we always want in life and, well, in death too. That's why we get these giant tombs today in cemeteries, massive tombstones. They're much larger than anything else to show status and have a way of taking it with us, as it were.